Good afternoon, Maine. This is Chuck Ellis, and you are watching the Muddy Waters podcast. So, thank you all for paying attention. The Muddy Waters podcast exists to help the people of Maine better understand what we're doing here in Maine, what the political landscape looks like, and help you navigate those muddy waters. So, we're fortunate today to have with us Matt Griffiths. Matt is the director or head or whatever, president maybe is the appropriate word, of the Maine Young Republicans. And so thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm currently the state chair of the Maine Young Republicans. And yeah, I'm great. It's happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited. One of the things that is part of the reason that I started doing this podcast in the first place is that in order for us to win long term, we have to go where younger voters are, where we're going to reach people that we're not reaching people. We got to use the new platforms. And so, with an eye on particularly, creating shorts for videos like this to get them out into the places where your younger voters are, because younger voters don't tend to come to the door when you go knock. Maybe probably largely because a lot of them aren't there, because if they've got free time, they're not spending it at home. But even if they are at home, they don't want to have people come to their door. So they hide, they turn off the lights. Yes, and so how do we reach young people? And so that's why I was really excited to have you on. We had Christina Parker on a long time, quite a while ago now, who heads up Turning Point USA Activism Hub in Kennebec County, which really excited about what they're doing. But we're just really excited to see younger people engaging in politics in this old state. And so I'm excited to have you on to hear your story, kind of like who you are, where you come from, and then we'll talk a little bit, later about the Young Republicans, what you're doing, how people can get involved. But yeah, so start who are you? Where do you come from? Why are you involved in politics? All that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm originally from Oklahoma, a very, very red state. So it's actually been a lot different. It's been a lot different moving to Maine. Not used to a lot of the crazy policies. I'll just say crazy policies, because some of them are a little,
wild.
They're wild. That's right. Yeah. They're wild. And so I moved here from Oklahoma, and when I moved here, I had talked with some people here that had been doing the Young Republicans earlier, and I said, well, actually, I started prior to COVID. I was working with an NGO at the border in 2019. That's where I kind of started getting a government service. We talked with I got to do government relations. I did some stuff with Governor Abbott. We did some stuff with Border Patrol, with ICE, and with that kind of thing. And then I went back to Oklahoma during COVID, and I kind of got involved there over the mask debacle. I'm sure we all remember that. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad there as it was here. They never forced them on us over there. So that was a threat that was happening, and that's why I got involved. And that was one of the big things. And the other thing I went before the city council because I didn't like the ordinance on the trash bins. They mandated everyone have these trash bins. I didn't like it. And that's really where I got involved. I built relationships with city councilors, with our city manager, with Governor Stitt, who's still there. I was able to get involved with him and do a lot of stuff. And that's really how I started. And that's really how any young person can really get started, is by attending select board meetings, city council meetings, getting connected and talking with the people that represent you and building those relationships and starting to have that conversation. And it's really hard. It's hard for young people to be able to do that. And thankfully, we have organizations like the Young Republicans with a mission to recruit, train, and elect young Republicans up and down the ballot, helping them get prepared not to just run for office, but to also get involved in activism, to be able to give testimony, to speak to their elected officials and things like that. That's really important. So that's something that we're gonna get started up here, and it had been going previously, and then it kind of had stopped. And so we had a discussion last summer about getting it going again. Some of us got together and we kind of did this exploratory committee to kind of see what it would take to get it started, and we were able to get it up and going. We had our election last June, or it might have been July. It was sometime last summer we had the election, and I was fortunate to have been elected state chair. We have a good group of people on our executive committee now, and that's kind of how we got started in Maine. We went and got chartered at our meeting in San Diego last fall. And the big thing that we're working on is getting ready for the midterms. We got started a little late to get involved in the general election. So we're focusing on the midterm election, because that's really, some people are saying that could be our last chance to really take our state back, and we don't want it to come to that. But
Our
I
state
think
or our country. I mean,
our
we're
country
in
too.
Trump won, and he's currently the president, and we currently have a slight majority in the House and the Senate. The reality is, we're still like, if people think are out there and they feel comfortable, you're not paying attention because we're still very close. We were very close to having Democrat rule all across the country, and our country going in a very dark direction. So yeah, midterms are very important.
Very important. Yeah, I think our country too could be in serious trouble. And I think that's why it's even more important. So we have to get the young people involved, and that's what I can talk about real quick. Is I was looking at a chart the other day. I can send this to you. I don't know how we would be able to put it on the screen, but I have it. I can show it to you on my camera here. But we've got 60% of voters between the age of 18 and 29 voted in Maine in 2024, and people say that's good. I don't think that's too good. I don't think that's too good. We had record voter registration for first time voters. So that's voter registration of 18 to 20-year-olds. A lot of them didn't even vote in the election. So they
Wow.
registered to vote and they didn't even vote. I'm still trying to figure out more about that. I haven't really found a lot of substantive information on that. I'm looking to know more, but I think that's really interesting is what's keeping them from voting, but they didn't vote. But you look at that, and then that was just among 18 to 29-year-olds, and then 2 in 5 young Mainers set out the election altogether. That's just in Maine alone. 2 in 5 young Mainers, 18 to 29, didn't even vote. And then first-time voters, it was even lower, 41%. So I think it really presents a strategic opportunity for us to mobilize and convert previously disengaged young conservatives. President Trump won Maine's second congressional district, obviously, but the Republican candidate for the U.S. House didn't win.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we take that, have to take it back. So that's concerning. So that's one of the key things we're looking at. So we've got to look at the young voter and what's keeping them from voting, and what we can do to get that turnout to rise. And it's not just young Republicans we have to get. We have to look out and we have to go see if we can find these young unenrolled voters too, because we've got to get some of their votes to make up for the votes that we're losing to the Democrats. I think 60% is okay. I don't think it's the best when you have control by the Democrats in the state house hanging on by 100, 200 votes. So we have to get that number up. And again, like I said, there's a record number of voter registrations, but they didn't even vote. So, and I think that's also true when you have some of the issues that are being fed to them are not issues that they immediately care about. What are the issues that are going to affect me right now? Is a lot of things that these young voters are concerned about when they're looking at things like climate change and things like that. They want to know what's going to affect me right now. So I think that played a little bit into it, but I'll have to look into it some more and we'll see what we can find out.
Yeah, but I think you're right. Like, I think young voters are huge, and I would suspect that given the kind of rabid obedience of people who identify as Democrat these days, in particular, right, that more likely, if it's 60% of young people showed up to vote, it's probably mostly our side who didn't, or people who are more leaning in our direction, who are
That's
the
my
ones
guess.
that didn't more than the other side that didn't actually make it out to vote. And I know a couple of those people. In fact, people that I'm good friends with, they were like, "Oh yeah, we didn't go out to vote," and I'm like, "Why?" And they're on our side,
Mhm.
and I'm like, but they're kind of more. I think this is one of the challenges we have with young people is that they're more apathetic. Like, do they like what's going on? No, but clearly not enough to get up off of their butts and get out to vote.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's an interesting thing, and we've got to figure out how to more effectively get there. And I think part of it is what we're doing here, things like this, getting information in front of them and helping them realize how important it is and how big of an impact they have the ability to have, especially down ballot. You mentioned that, like Trump did really well, and Austin Terrio, for instance, didn't do as well in CD2, and that's because people voted at the top of the ticket and didn't vote all the way down, and that's, again, I think that's an indictment on really the entire political process. And like mainstream, I always like to blame mainstream media as much as is humanly
For
possible,
sure. For
and
sure.
they're to blame because they make people believe, because they're always like pointing you to Trump. They want you to look at the national so that you don't see what they're doing with their lawyers, that they're pushing policies like Drummond and Woodson here in Maine. They don't want you to pay attention to school board policies and city councils and stuff like that. They want you to get too focused on what's going on in Washington and make you think that the most important thing for you to vote on is president. And I'm not saying it's not important, but you actually obviously have a much more significant impact on the smaller elections. You have one vote out of, how many million, 300 million, whatever, 150 million actually vote for president. And there's it's more complicated than that. But when you're talking about school board, some of those races are decided by less than 100 votes, 50 votes, 30 votes, right? Your vote there actually counts so much more, and has a much more significant impact on your life and the life of people in your community. And so we've got to get better at getting that information out in front of people, for sure.
Yeah. And I think one of the things too is the messaging. We've got to take the messaging to the people where they are, like you said. A lot of these young people, if you go knock on their door, they're probably not going to answer the door. They could be sleeping. There's a lot of that happening. And or they could be doing a number of things. When young people have free time, they're doing the things that they want to do. And I really want to say that speaks to young people who are spending their free time getting engaged in this process and supporting the Republican Party. I think that speaks to the amount of care that young people are starting to show in the political process, because this is what they're spending their free time doing. And I think that's very admirable. So I do appreciate the large number of young people that are spending their time doing things like this, because I think that's important. But we have to engage all the other people, the young people too. And I think that's getting them where they are. That's through TikTok, that's through Snapchat, that's through Instagram, through social media as a whole. That's really what we're going to try and get the message out to them. And it's not just the message on the candidates. It's about the message on the issues too. We've got to get them the truth on the issues, because like you said, a lot of young people are being fed information on the issues that just is flat out true, especially in states like Maine. Some of the mainstream media is feeding them half truths, sometimes not even the truth at all. And so we've got to cut through the noise and really get the messaging to them. And that's really what we're going to be focused on too.
Yeah, no, that's great. As a great example of the mainstream media's lies, Unquirer recently uncovered, he does a lot of, he's a guy on X, at Unquirer, and he does a lot of stuff where he calls up different places. And so over the course of the last week or so, I think he was calling a bunch of hotels in Old Orchard Beach and asking them what their availability was, what their pricing was, and all this stuff. Yeah. And basically, yeah. And what he uncovered is this mainstream media narrative of the fact that, Canadians aren't going to come down, and they're not coming down, and Maine's economy is suffering because of Trump's tariffs. It's not true. It's not true. They're booked. They've had a few cancellations is what some of them say, but the prices they're charging, those places are having no problem filling. And the Canadians are still coming down in droves is what the people working at those places are saying, not realizing that they're being recorded. Right. And so here's the reality. That's just a great example of the fact that the mainstream media is lying. They have not done a retraction. They have not followed up on that story. They told the initial story, which, there may have been some cancellations. Sure. But they use that in order to fuel this anti-Trump hatred and keep people focused on the national narrative and try and make Maine people upset with Trump when it's just not true.
Yeah, that's terrible. I do remember seeing that, and I think that is a great example. So, and I think that's something that we're going to try and work on too, is just find ways to get that messaging to young people. And I think that's going to be a big part of our push in the midterms, aside from getting Republicans elected, because I think that's a way to do it too. So that's quite shocking to me, actually, because I did remember seeing that, but I didn't know much about it. That's shocking to me, but not surprising.
Yeah, no, it's not surprising that they lie. And even still, when I looked at it, I was like, okay, it's easy in March or whenever it was, April, I guess, is when the tariff. Well, actually, the tariffs began to be talked about for Canada in March. They kind of hit everybody else, I think, in earlier April. But the reality is that when people, it's easy for somebody to say something when it's 6 weeks out, when it's two months out, and kind of in defiance say, I'm not going to Maine because of Trump's tariffs. But like when push comes to shove, when it gets closer to like, this is the time that I always go down to OOB, like even if people initially cancel, I think a lot of the people would just be like, but I really want to go to OOB. If that's what they like to do, that's their pattern. That's their, so I was skeptical that it was going to last, even if it was true in the first place. But to find out that basically it just didn't really happen is again, no surprise. The mainstream media is just pushing lies. That's what they do.
Yeah.
That's why we exist. And that's why we're here to kind of help dispel some of those things and help people really understand what's going on, as well as how they can get involved and how they can help. And so like it's really important to take videos like that when you see them in social media and share them, like share and get that information out, or when you're having conversations with people to like grab those and send them to your friend and be like, hey, this is what I was referencing, because it's easy for them to be like, well, I don't see it anywhere, it can't really be happening, that's just a right-wing conspiracy. And so that's where we, the people, need to be the purveyors of the news. We need to be the ones that are sharing it, and we need a lot of people to be doing it for a variety of reasons. One of which is these social media companies aren't all on our side. In fact, they're not on our side, right? They're largely part of the establishment. TikTok recently banned me. Why? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't even know what I could have posted that would have upset them, but they banned me. And so it's like, okay, I got to start a new page because we have
to. That's why they banned you. You're telling the truth.
Well, and I sent them an email to that effect. I was like, it sounds like you're discriminating against conservative voices. That's not okay. And so what did I do? I started a new page and I started uploading videos again. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep doing that because we need to get the message out. And TikTok's one of the best places to reach young people. That and Instagram seem to be the best ones to hit those younger crowds. Snapchat too. I haven't really tried to get into Snapchat for that. But it's good that you mention it because I forget about them. I hate Snapchat, but I hate all these social media companies. So
yeah, so Snapchat for me, when I've done stuff previously, has actually been a little effective, especially when you're able to take out when you're trying to take out like sponsored ads. So if you're trying to support a candidate or you're helping a candidate, that candidate can actually take out ads on Snapchat and target them. And that's really how you can target some of the young voters with your messaging, because you can take out geo-located ads in a certain area. And it really works. And people see them because I've seen them, because they take the ads and they post them on the email. People that don't like them take the ads and they post them on social media. I'm like, well, that's really neat. I don't agree with anything they're saying sometimes, but I think it's neat that they're trying to reach those people. So I think these are strategies that work, and that's stuff that we're going to be looking at and assisting with if we can. Because you have to play by the rules in Maine. Yeah. We have to. The Democrats don't have to, but we have to. So,
yeah, at least for now. Hopefully, we get in control and we can make sure that they follow the rules. What?
Absolutely. I said, hopefully, we can get that changed. But maybe they'll start following the rules too. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
No, I mean, given their current pattern, it seems highly unlikely. Yeah. What was I going to say? So one of the things that's interesting about the Maine Young Republicans that you were sharing with me that I think is important for people to understand is it's actually like kind of a branch or an arm of the party. This is not a secondary organization that's kind of like a PAC that's doing its own thing. It's part of the state, the national party, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're the National Federation of Young Republicans is an auxiliary group of the RNC. The National Committee works cohesively with the Republican National Committee to further the Republican Party's agenda, the platform. And then we have state federations, which are branches of that to do the work in our states. And I, as state chair, am a member of the National Committee. And so what I do is I take what's happening in Maine back to the National Committee so that on a national level we can get some support for the stuff that's going here. I don't know if you know this, but I know some people actually probably do know this, is the only path to victory I've heard that the Democrats have to take back the Senate is to unseat Senator Collins and take that seat back. I don't know who they're trying to replace her with. I know of him. I saw him on a podcast. It might have been with some Brian Tyler Cohen left-wing weirdo guy. I saw snippets of his interview. There wasn't really anything of substance. He seems like a nice guy, but it sounds like he's rich and he was working or helping Obama. How did you get rich helping Obama? That seems to be happening. That seems to be happening.
Who is this?
It's I don't know his name. Well, I should know his name. He was on with this Brian Tyler Cohen guy.
Okay. Is he the unenrolled? That's the unenrolled who's running for Senate? Is that who?
Democrat. I think he's a Democrat because
Okay.
he was with. I'm pretty sure he's a Democrat. I'm pretty sure he's a Democrat. I don't know. Maybe we could look it up. Let me see.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I'm pretty sure he's a Democrat though. But he was talking about how old she was, and that's all they're trying to go after is how old she is because she's well. I mean, I shouldn't get involved in the primary. We'll see how that pans out. But either way, I'd like to see a Republican retain that seat because any Republican would be better than a radical left person.
I wonder if you're referencing Jordan Wood.
Jordan Wood, that's his name. Is he a Democrat? I thought he was a Democrat.
He is a Democrat. There's another person, an independent former SpaceX engineer from Waterboro named Philip Wrench. That's who I was referencing.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah. He declared in February, whereas Wood declared or mentioned something at the end of April, apparently, and I missed it. There are a couple others in the conversation, but regardless, who knows who they're going to throw? And it's possible there is technically a primary challenger to Susan Collins. There's a guy, ex-guy named Dan Smeriglio, and like one of the things that like as members of the party. The party itself is not does not get involved in endorsing candidates before primaries, right, and stuff like that. Yes. And so I speak not on behalf of the party or anything like that, but on my own. It's like I just think at this point we've got too much stuff to work on to spend time, energy, and effort trying to primary the only conservative, the only Republican senator in the Northeast. Doesn't seem like a good use of of resources when we've got so many other things that we can throw time, energy, and money after. But anyway, there's that to say, especially hearing that that's part of their strategy. The number one strategy is to get rid of Susan Collins. Now, obviously, we would have the hope that if we, like the conservatives, the people who think that Susan Collins doesn't really represent Republicans, and I understand where they're coming from, and I largely agree with them. But I also feel like I see reality, and I say I'd rather have her than like. Who was the person she ran against last time? It doesn't matter. Hannah Pingree we'll use as an example. I'd rather have Susan Collins than a Democrat. And I think if you had a standard, historically, the argument has been if you had a Republican that represents more conservative values like what I hold, then they would likely lose the statewide election. The reason that Susan Collins wins in this like purplish blue state is because of the fact that she's not a standard Republican. Again, whether you buy that argument or not, that's one that I tend to have a lot of put a lot of stock in. But again, I'm not necessarily picking sides. I'm more just talking about the reality of the situation. And we're going to have Dan Smeriglio on here at some point and talk a little bit about like his path and like what he thinks, what he needs to do in order to be able to stand up to Susan Collins. But I just think it's a very dangerous game in general to go after that when we have so many other things that we need to do here in our state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll just say, we are as an auxiliary of the RNC, we also are not to get involved in Republican primaries. But I will say this: we need a Republican to win that election. We have to.
That's right. That's all I care about. Not all I care about, but that's the number one thing. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm looking forward to supporting Republican candidates, however they choose to participate in the electoral process. So we'll support the Republicans no matter what, and we'll support the Republican nominee no matter what. That's just what we'll always. That's what we've always done. That's what we'll do. So yeah, I would like to see that Senate seat stay red. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, but
we got to have it stay red. So whatever happens, Susan Collins, Dan Smeriglio, as long we got to have a Republican in there. So whoever comes out of that race, we're back.
Yes, and I will say that I did have a nice meeting with Senator Collins over the inauguration weekend. We were in Washington, D.C., so we were able to get a good relationship going there, and we have gotten some positive feedback from her. We did send a letter to her regarding the SAVE Act, and we did receive a positive, supportive response from her. So we were excited to see that she supported the SAVE Act for us, and we also sent a letter asking for her support for RFK Jr., and she responded saying that she did support him. So we were happy to see that as well. I'll also be happy to meet and discuss with Mr. Dan Sperglio. I've not met him. I've only seen his name. I'd be happy to speak with him as well. But we're happy to support any Republicans running for office, and of course we'll support the Republican nominee. So.
Yeah. So real quick, remind people what the SAVE Act is. So she supported the SAVE Act, but that was...
She did support the SAVE Act. She did support the SAVE Act, which was election integrity. I don't have the full text of it.
Okay.
One of the things that I wanted the support for was because the Democrats were coming out saying that it would, if people got their names changed, they wouldn't be able to vote. And I did some looking into it, and that was just completely not true. There are several methods that people can register to vote regardless of name change. It was just the typical Democratic ploy to try and stop any bill that they disagree with. And unfortunately, they were taking control of the narrative. But election integrity is a top 10 issue, probably a top 5 issue for Republican voters. They want to make sure that their elections are secure. Young voters also want to make sure their elections are secure. That's one of the reasons they're not voting, because I've heard it from them myself. I've heard it directly from young voters. How do I know my elections are secure? Well, the fact is, in many cases, you don't. So we need to make sure that young voters and voters in general know that the elections are secure, their ballots are counted, and that their votes are secure. So I think that was just one way to do it, and I was happy that the senator responded saying that she was supportive of that.
Yeah, no, that's. I'm glad that she was. I looked it up. Yeah, it's basically requiring proof of citizenship and all kinds of other like really important provisions to protect our elections, which obviously is paramount. Like if this is the thing that's actually just for fun that's crazy about the Democrats. If everything's on the up and up, why wouldn't you want half of the population or a third of the population, however you want to put it, who doesn't feel confident that we are having free and fair and safe and free and fair elections, right? Why would you not want to give them that confidence? Like, why would you stop doing that? Again, their argument, I think, is racism, but it's not a very good argument. It's actually racist in and of itself, as we've probably seen plenty of videos. Black people are very capable of getting IDs, and so it's a little ridiculous. But anyway, we need to safeguard our elections, obviously. So I'm glad that she was in support of that. I had another question. Oh, so one of the things that, again, obviously you're with the Young Republicans, you're a young person yourself, and we need to engage younger voters. How do we do that? Outside of some of the stuff that we've already said, how do we get young people to show up to our meetings? I'll give you an example. I had, I think, 5 people under the age of 40 at my Cumberland County Republican Committee meeting. Not last month, but I think the month before, if I'm right. Anyway, I can't remember. It's gone. So much has happened, but I think it was either last month or the month before. Either way. And Christina Parker was our speaker, and she was like, wow, I've not seen a group that has this many young people. And I'm like, that's it. And so how do we get young people to these meetings? How do we get them involved?
Yeah. So one of the ways that we get them involved, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be hosting events. We're going to be hosting our first event later on this summer. It's going to be a big event. We're doing a joint event with the National Federation in New Hampshire. We're still in the planning stages for that. That's going to be actually our big midterm push kickoff for our midterm initiative, which is going to be Swing Maine Red, which I'll get to here in a little bit. So that's going to be the big event for that. And that's really how we plan to draw in a lot of these people into our group, is through events, through hosting events, doing events while we're doing the work. So whether that's doing GOTV activities, we'll do an event. So we'll go out door knocking, we'll do an event. So, and I think that's the great thing about doing a lot of this stuff in the summer is there's always a ton of stuff to do, especially down here in southern Maine, coastal Maine. There's all sorts of stuff that we're going to be able to do to draw people into. But the big thing is we're going to be hosting events, letting people know we're here. But we're also going to be going to the county meetings. I'm going to county meetings all over the state starting this month. I'll be traveling up north to a few counties up there to let people know about what we're going to be doing, and to introduce myself, to see where we can get some more recruitment. But the big thing is, through events. We're going to be hosting some events this summer, and I'm pretty excited about them. As soon as we get them finalized, we'll definitely share all the dates and stuff. so we can get people at those events. So we're going to bring in some really cool speakers as well. I know one of the speakers that we're going to be having at one of our upcoming events is going to be a very nice, he's a Border Patrol agent from Texas. He's going to be coming to speak to us at an event we're going to be having probably in the fall is when it sounds like it's going to be happening. He's going to come speak to us about what's going on at the southern border. I know, because that's going to be that. A lot of young people have questions about that, and they want to hear directly from the people working there. What are the problems? And it's getting the direct answers and bringing the direct answers to the people. So that's really why we're doing what we're doing. And I think that's going to be a big way to bring a lot of this information directly to young people and get them engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what are the other, I think you mentioned before that you had some things, I think one was around like, what are the issues that young people care about?
Mm-hmm.
And what are, because that's part of how we, I think, get them involved, right? Is we talk about the things that they care about.
Yeah. So a lot of the issues that young people I cared about, I have a lot of notes here, so that way I don't get off into tangents or to rambling. But one of the things I'd like to talk about is last month, President Trump signed an executive order implementing that will be the most favored nation in pricing and a pricing model on prescription drugs. That's bringing prescription drugs down 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% across the board. I think those are issues that young people care about. Young people care about what can I do to make my life better right now. There are people that care about climate change. A lot of people care about climate change, but they want real life, short-term solutions, long-term solutions to the problems that are happening right now in the short term. That's what they want. That's what they're voting on, because that's what they're struggling with. A lot of things too that I've heard when we started launching this from young voters is a lot of them don't have health insurance. And even, there's about 10% of young Americans that don't have health insurance. I don't think that's an inadequate number, because I don't think that captures the amount of young people that are underinsured. When you look at the people who are underinsured, I think that number grows 20 to 30%. And when you have people working in restaurants, when you have people working part-time jobs, even people that are working full-time, I had someone call me, one of my friends call me several months ago saying, hey man, I'm really in a pinch right now. I'm struggling. I have to choose between paying my health insurance and buying groceries. I'm like, dude, yeah, I can help you with whatever you need. But it's like, what happens to get us to this point? And this was actually probably about a year ago that this happened, actually. And I think that speaks to the fact that we're going to have no taxes on tips. No taxes on tips is huge for young Americans, because a lot of young Americans are working in these roles. That's money that they can use to pay for prescription drugs, to pay for health insurance, to pay for doctor's visits that they're going to have to not be able to go to because they can't afford it. So I think that's one of the issues that young people care about. And yeah, go ahead.
Just for fun, I feel like there's an important element of that. So no taxes on tips has another really positive impact working in banking for a lot of years on people who work in restaurants. Now, let's be honest, if you're getting tips in cash, like a lot of those people were not necessarily counting all of their, I think it's shifted now that a lot more is happening on cards, but a lot still does happen in cash. And a lot of people probably weren't counting that money that they were getting in cash because they didn't want to have to pay taxes on it. And this was having a negative impact on them when they go to the bank to get a loan. Right. And there are things like that are happening. That's another element of a positive impact. It's going to help their lending eligibility for people who, we can be upset about the fact that they weren't claiming the taxes, but none of us like getting paid taxes, having to pay taxes. And if we had a really easy way to not have to pay them, such as being given cash tips, I think most of us would also not include those. And so that's actually another element that's I think really positive for young people.
Yeah, and I think that's something too, that's a message that has to get out there. I think another thing that a lot of people are still talking about, I think, is the Title IX issue. I think conservatives and common sense are winning on Title IX, regardless of what the mainstream Maine news media is going to tell you. But when you have school districts like Lewiston who are reverting back to previous policies rooted in common sense, I think, and not Marxism, I think that actually proves that common sense and conservatives are winning on the issue. The fact is, the New York Times still says 79% of Americans believe that men don't belong in female sports. That number's the same or higher when you look at young Americans. And then just a couple of days ago, you have liberal NBC News, who is followed by liberals, polls liberals. 64% of Gen Z voters polled by NBC News said that they believe men do not belong in women's sports. And then you have people, you can actually go back. I just saw this the other day. If you go and look a year ago, or maybe it was 2 years ago, I think it was in 2022, press secretary under President Biden, Karine Jean-Pierre, stated at a White House podium, she said this, and I'll read you the exact quote. She said, when you are not with where a majority of Americans are, then you know that is extreme. That is an extreme way of thinking. So by their own definition, supporting men and women's sports is extremist. And they still call us crazy. So Governor Mills said the settlement to restore funding is a victory. I don't think that's a victory. The Department of Education lawsuit is still pending. It's still ongoing. Federal law supersedes state law because it's regarding federal dollars. So, I mean, I don't think the Democrats are going to win on this issue. And I also think that a lot of conservatives and a lot of young conservatives are looking at a lot of the other issues too. When you look at, I think the Maine Wire might have reported this. There was an audit that was done, I believe, by the state or on the state. It was like $2 billion or so dollars, $2 billion in mismanaged money was found. You got
by a Democrat, by the way. This is Matthew Dunlap, who is a former Democrat legislator. I think he was actually the former maybe Secretary of State or something, or not. I can't remember what role. Maybe he was. Anyway, he was one of the in one of the positions, appointed positions by the governor. So he is a Democrat involved in the party, and he's the one who reported this. So like, I think that's a significant element. Yep. But yeah, and 2.1 billion in no bid contracts.
Yeah, $2 billion or so dollars. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. And that was another thing. And then another thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that there's a lack of accountability. Young voters are worried that there's just a lack of accountability in our state. You look at the Democrats are controlling pretty much everything, and it's not. Some of it doesn't look too good. It doesn't look like it's going too good fiscally. And there's a huge lack of accountability, and I think that's really going to help us in the midterm. So we're going to see what happens. But those are just a few of the issues that I know that young voters are worried about. Well, and then you have the Secretary of State. She's going to be running for governor, and now she's going to be overseeing her own election. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know how that's allowed, but we'll see.
I know that she's probably not going to lose whatever challenge to her ability to do that, because the same thing happened in Arizona when Kari Lake was running for governor. Kari Lake was running against the Secretary of State who was overseeing the election. Yeah, exactly. And so like it seems absolutely insane, and they should be required to delegate that responsibility to somebody else. But ultimately, when it's the Democrats, what does it even matter? If it's not Shenna Bellows, it's somebody else in that office who's doing shady things on behalf of the Democrats. So, it's absurd that it's allowed. And I can understand when this is the thing that's really interesting, because you point out a lot of these things, all these issues, we win with young people, right? Like, how did the Democrats even win in the first place? I don't understand. Like, I didn't get this in a sense in 2024, how they just like were on issues where they're clearly losing. They're still headed fast toward them at breakneck speed, knowing that they're losing issues from. They had to know this. They had to know the polls. They have so much money. Kamala Harris had $1.5 billion on her campaign. You're going to tell me she didn't poll to see how they do on these things? Of course they did. So like here in the state of Maine, it seems like they're continuing in that same behavior, doing these insane things. I think Mike Tipping is a great example up in, he won with he won by like a couple hundred votes, I think what it was, which is less than 1% is what he won by. And he's out there acting like one of the most radical members of our legislature for the Democrats, as though there's going to be no accountability with the voters just because he overlaps with Orono. But again, in one of the most highly turned out elections, he barely won 50%. People are getting more and more fed up. I think one of the things you didn't mention that I suspect is connected. We talked about economics, but I think having the ability to potentially ever own a home is another thing that I think is really big for younger voters. And, they can't be, probably they're not talking about it because it just seems like such a far-fetched possibility.
It's unreachable.
Yeah.
It's been unreachable. I think it's getting more reachable than it was now under the new administration. I think it's going to be easier for young Americans to own a home. But previously, she ran on young people owning a home, and then she could never say how she was going to pay for it. And that's what That's what baffles me. So I think a lot of young people, it's just unreachable for them. It's not like it used to be, and we're going to have to figure that out because
Well,
it's
don't worry. The Democrats are going to give them affordable housing, which means they're going to be tenants of the government for their entire existence. How does that sound?
oh, yeah.
It's like, I don't know if you understand why this isn't actually a solution, Democrats.
Yeah,
They don't want to be tenants of the government. They want to own their own home. And that's where,
absolutely.
we want them. That's where the Republican Party is the party of opportunity. We're the party of, yes, personal responsibility, but also what comes with personal responsibility is empowerment. We believe in you. We believe you can make it. We believe you can figure this stuff out because historically humans have. The Democrats don't want you to believe in yourself because they want you to feel like you need them to help you with every single thing so that they get to control you. Those are your
Absolutely.
choices.
Absolutely. And so that's the messaging we're going to get out to young people. And we're also going to get out, we're going to be doing recruitment. Now, I did talk about this at the state Republican committee meeting on Saturday. Our recruitment plan is rooted in 3 tiers, and this is what we're going to be doing. So our first tier is going to be high impact battleground areas. This is where we're going to have boots on the ground. We're going to get help from other groups, other young conservative groups, and hopefully our neighbors from outside states will come in and help us with this very important mission. So that's going to be the high impact battlegrounds. That's where a lot of crucial counties and districts and races are going to be. And the second tier is going to be our Republican strongholds. And this is where we're going to have our home bases at. We're going to build strong clubs, strong backbones to support these battlegrounds. And then we're going to go into deep blue territory, Cumberland County, Portland, and that's where we're going to be doing a lot of outreach because we know that there's conservatives out there who really just need people to connect with. And so we're going to be getting out there as well. So those are the big 3 tiers. We're going to be working on the midterms. We're also going to bring the messaging about all of this through social media, through TikTok, through Snapchat, through Instagram, and so that's how we're going to be doing that. And we're really excited about it. But we're also looking for people to join us, and we need people to join us. But I do want to be totally transparent. We haven't raised a single dollar yet, and that's okay because we haven't really asked for any money yet. The stuff that we've been doing hasn't really costed us anything. We're still getting organized and getting ready to head into the midterms. But fundraising is coming soon. We're still getting everything set up the right way. We want to make sure when we do it, and we're doing it by the book. So that's what we're doing. But we're going to be holding events and fundraisers. We just don't have the dates yet. But as soon as we do, we'll let everybody know. I just wanted to make sure to get that out there. I was told that I needed to include that, so I included it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, you're talking about people getting involved. How do they find you? How do they get involved if you're and what is? So actually, this is actually a really important question before you get into those 2 things. What is a young Republican? Can I join?
Yes. So a Republican, by our bylaws, a young Republican, eligible voting members, anyone between the age of 18 and 40. So if they haven't reached their 41st birthday, they're eligible to be a voting member. I know, but you're still welcome to come to our events and anything like that. You're welcome to attend. You just can't be a voting member of the organization. And we're looking for anybody that wants to help us, or maybe you like hanging out with young Republicans. We're totally okay with that too because we're going to be hitting the ground and a lot of these races, especially the federal race. We've got a big race up in CD2, and then we can't forget about CD1. We can't forget about Congressional District 1, where Representative Shelley Pingree, the face of the Green New Deal, is flying back and forth on a private jet. I'd like to see the carbon footprint for that, but anyway.
That would be great. Yeah. Okay. So, so that's what a young Republican is now. How do people get involved? How do they follow you? Are you on X? This is one of the things that our X people are like, where are you? How can I follow you on X?
I am on X. I believe we are also on X. We're also on Facebook. We also have a registration form on our page where you can sign up to join our group. You'll get our emails, all of our stuff, and you'll get invitations to all of our events. But yeah, we are on social. You can find us at the Maine Young Republicans. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. I think we're on all of it, really. I don't think we're on TikTok yet because I forgot the password. So I have to.
Okay.
Sorry about that. That was my dog.
No, that's fine. And you're on X. What's your handle on X?
Yes, I believe my handle on X is. I'll have to look this up real quick because I know I am actually on X for sure. My handle on X is going to be Maine Matt G. So that's my handle on X at Maine Matt G. That is my name on X. So feel free to follow. And that's where I'm at on there. Yeah.
Awesome. Make sure to follow Matt on there and hear about what's going on with the Maine Young Republicans and get involved. Everybody needs to do what they can to help us win in 2026 so we can stop the insanity of what's happening in Augusta and beyond. And we can get rid of Jared Golden at the national level and make sure we still have a Republican senator here as well. And we need to win the governor's race. That's really important.
Governor. Yeah. We got to get a
we really do. So we need you to get involved. And so one of the ways that you can do that, again, like, share, subscribe, take the little shorts that I'm going to make, follow me on all the other different platforms. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. Actually, you won't be able to find me under this on TikTok, but you can find, I think, the Voices of Maine is the new one that I've started since they banned me. But I've got a new one started. You can follow me there. You can also, again, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're just about everywhere. You can find us, not on Snapchat, but so find the shorts, share those with people as you're having conversations. You can also buy our merch, one, to help support the podcast, because right now I lose money and it's fun, but it'd be nice to lose less money. So there's a little QR code at the top of the screen right now that says buy some merch. You can go there. Or on my X page, there is a website coming soon for the Muddy Waters podcast, which will make it a little bit easier. We're almost there. You'll be seeing that shortly. It'll be also a place where you're going to be able to buy merch, but definitely check us out. Buy some stuff, support the podcast. Also, wearing this stuff can help you have a conversation with people and be like, what the heck is a Muddy Waters podcast? And then you can share the story of who we are so we can get more information out to the people about what's going on in our state. So do that. Get involved in your party. One last little pitch is tomorrow night, the Cumberland County Republicans, if you're in the area, we are having Steve Robinson, the editor of the Maine Wire, is going to be our guest, our featured speaker, talking about the information war here in Maine and what the Maine Wire is doing and other things that we can do and how we can fight back against the mainstream narrative. So if you're around, check us out. We're going to be at the South Portland Community Center. Go to ccrcme.com to RSVP or get more details. So thank you. Anything else that you have for the people before we go, Matt?
No, just follow and support the Maine Young Republicans. We need all the help we can get. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you again. And thank you all for watching. And again, let's go out and let's make Maine red. Let's make the Democrats pay for their insane ideology. And if you haven't watched it already, a really fun podcast that I'm gonna promote is Laura Libby, Representative Laura Libby interviewed Cynthia Dill, who is a former state legislator. She actually ran for U.S. Senate as a Democrat when Angus first ran. It's an interview where she's talking about like the woke ideology is what caused her to leave the Democrat Party, and she ran as a Democrat for a House seat as recently as 2024. But she lost in the primary. But she is like, it's a really interesting conversation from a Democrat here in Maine who has walked away from the party over the woke ideology, and we need to make the Democrats in general pay. You can find that on Laurel's page on X. All right. Well, thank you all again, and we'll see you back here again, I think on Wednesday when we've got school board candidate Sean Hogan on with us on the podcast. Thanks.
Thank you.